Now, MTN has lodged an urgent legal bid to cast aside parts of the long-awaited spectrum auction. For the first time in 15 years, mobile operators can bid to get more radio frequencies, which means they can expand 5G. It should also, if it goes according to plan, lower data prices in South Africa. But Business Insider reporting today that MTN says ICASA is shutting it and Vodacom out of a crucial round of the auction, which could mean they could end up without any access to the 5G spectrum. I want to make some sense of this. Here's tech commentator Toby Shapshack. Toby, good afternoon to you. So MTN says it's being shut out of the process in a crucial round of this auction. Explain what the problem is here.
Sure. Let's just take a step back and firstly point out that it's been 15 years, Jeremy. The last time ICASA licensed spectrum for cellular broadcast was for 3G. We've gone through 4G and we're trying to get up to 5G, and this is how slow and cumbersome the process is. Part of the problem is that Vodacom and MTN, of course, were the first two networks, and they have a very large installed base. The newer networks, Cell-C not so much anymore, but Liquid Telecom and Telkom, of course, in this space is the underdog. They've actually got huge chunks of the spectrum already. So the way the auction is set up is that there's a first round where only the smaller bidders, the smaller operators can bid on the spectrum that's available. And of course, the spectrum that everybody's going for is this very particular 3.75, I think 3.7 gigahertz. And that's the one that these operators already have, Telkom and Liquid. And if they've got it, the argument goes from the two bigger operators, why haven't they used it? And this is the dilemma. The drive from President Cyril Ramaphosa and from ICASA is to bring in more players into the market. And, of course, the two smaller networks are the ones that they're thinking of. But they've got that. What has stopped Telkom from using that? And that's what MTN is saying. They're saying that the smaller bidders could buy up more of the spectrum. Then they're going to have more of it. They're still not using it, and MTN is going to be disadvantaged. So it comes down to a cross of arguments. On the one hand, the government wants to make the pool a little bit bigger by bringing in the smaller operators, but to actually use the networks and to set up these 5G networks is hugely expensive. And you can see the kind of dilemma and how it becomes a bit of a catch-22.
Right. So, Toby, does the fault then lie with the regulator?
Yes and no. I mean, it's also just takes so long to do anything. I think in some parts, I mean, you look at this process alone. This process should have happened a year ago. And now it's finally going to happen in March. And, of course, the operators themselves are unhappy. So that means it's going to be delayed even longer. It doesn't help that we have yet another incompetent communication minister. I mean, the communication ministry's best idea, really, to fund the SABC, which is a broken model in the first place. And the SABC, let us remember, is in financial trouble because of a Zuma appointee, you know, the truly mad Cloudy Motsaneng. And that's what got the SABC into trouble. And every time they try and get themselves out of trouble, the minister intervenes in the retrenchment process. And this is the same ministry that should be grappling with these important issues of how are we going to get this key spectrum to the people who really need it. And instead, you've got the minister getting involved in labour disputes and coming up with harebrained ideas.
So,
to reclassify.
Toby, what exactly then, if I can interrupt, what exactly does the court have to consider then?
Well, the court has to consider if it's fair and equitable for only the small players to get access to the spectrum if they're not going to actually use it. It's tens of billions of dollars of investment, Jeremy, billions of dollars we're talking about. It's very, very expensive to build these networks, but they are superb and much, much better. Part of the problem is, again, our communications ministry. We have missed the international deadline to switch over from using old-fashioned television signals, terrestrial television. We're supposed to turn that off in June 2015. We're still nowhere near that. So that chunk of spectrum is just not available. And as much as we can say the regulator needs to get together, they have to operate within the law. They also have to operate within their resources. And multiple communication ministers have not prioritized this regulatory body, and because it's weak and it doesn't have capacity and it doesn't have enough budget to hire more smart lawyers who can help it, it can't do these kinds of processes, and it also has to follow the law.
Toby Shapshack, I know exactly how passionate you are about this particular issue. Time, unfortunately, is always against us, but I do thank you for the very logical explanation.